Picture this: a city so powerful, so wealthy, that even mighty Rome trembled before it. A city of legendary origins, born from a queen's clever trick. This isn't a fantasy tale. This is the story of Carthage, one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. For centuries, its ships dominated the Mediterranean. Its merchants traded from the shores of Africa to the coasts of Britain, and its generals, like the brilliant Hannibal, brought Rome to its knees. But what happened to this legendary city? Why is it now a sprawling ruin on the coast of modern-day Tunisia? Join me as we journey back in time to uncover the epic rise and tragic fall of Carthage. Our story begins around 814 BC, according to legend. Queen Dido, also known as Elisa, fled the city of Tyre in Phoenicia modern-day Lebanon after her brother, King Pygmalion, murdered her husband. She and her followers sailed across the Mediterranean, eventually landing on the North African coast. The local Berber king offered her as much land as she could cover with a single ox hide. It seemed like a meager offer, but Dido was no ordinary queen. She cleverly cut the ox hide into incredibly thin strips, laid them end to end, and encircled a huge hill, which would become the heart of her new city, Carthage, or Carthage, meaning new city. Whether the legend is true or not, the location was pure genius. Situated on a peninsula with two excellent natural harbors, Carthage was perfectly positioned to control the sea lanes of the western Mediterranean. The Phoenicians were master sailors and traders, and the Carthaginians inherited this legacy. They quickly established a vast maritime network, trading goods like textiles, dyes, metals, and agricultural products across the sea. Their colonies and trading posts sprung up along the coasts of North Africa, Sicily, Sardinia, and Spain. Carthage wasn't just a city, it was the capital of a thalassocracy empire of the sea. What made Carthaginian society tick? It was a republic, but not like Athens or Rome. Power was held by a wealthy elite of merchants and landowners, who formed a council known as the Senate. Two chief magistrates, called Safes, were elected annually, similar to Roman consuls. This system created a stable and prosperous society focused on commerce and wealth, but don't mistake their focus on trade for weakness. The Carthaginians were formidable warriors when they needed to be. Their navy was the envy of the ancient world, featuring powerful warships called quinqueremes. On land, they relied heavily on mercenaries, fierce fighters from across their empire, including Numidian cavalry, Spanish infantry, and Gallic warriors. Religion was central to Carthaginian life. Their chief deities were Balhaman, a sky god, and his consort Denit, a mother goddess associated with fertility and the moon. We find their symbols everywhere in the ruins of Carthage. However, their religious practices have been a source of dark controversy for centuries. Roman writers accused the Carthaginians of practicing child sacrifice, claiming they burned their firstborn sons in offering to Bohaman in times of crisis. For a long time, historians debated whether this was just Roman propaganda to demonize their enemy. But archaeological evidence from a sacred precinct called the Tophet, where thousands of urns containing the cremated remains of infants have been found, suggests there might be some truth to these grim accounts. The exact nature and scale of this practice are still hotly debated, but it adds a chilling layer to our understanding of their culture. As Carthage's power grew, it was only a matter of time before it clashed with another rising power in the Mediterranean, Rome. The two cities were like magnets repelling each other, competing for control of trade, territory, and influence. Their rivalry would explode into a series of 3 epic conflicts known as the Punic Wars, a struggle that would last for over a century and decide the fate of the Western world. The First Punic War, which began in 264 BC, was primarily a naval conflict fought over control of the island of Sicily. The Romans, who were not traditionally a naval power, suffered devastating losses at first, but they were incredibly resilient. They captured a Carthaginian warship, reverse-engineered it, and built their own fleet. They even invented a new device, the corvus, a boarding bridge that allowed their superior soldiers to fight on enemy ships as if they were on land. After more than 20 years of brutal fighting, Rome emerged victorious, forcing Carthage to give up Sicily and pay a heavy price. This defeat was a bitter pill for Carthage to swallow, and it set the stage for one of history's greatest military commanders to emerge. Hannibal Barca. Hannibal's father, Hamilcar, made him swear an oath of eternal hatred toward Rome. And Hannibal would dedicate his life to fulfilling that oath. In 218 BC, he launched the Second Punic War with one of the most audacious military maneuvers in history. He assembled a massive army, complete with cavalry and war elephants, and marched them from Spain, over the treacherous Pyrenees and the snow-covered Alps, and into Italy itself. For 15 years, Hannibal terrorized the Roman heartland. He inflicted a series of crushing defeats on the Romans, most famously at the Battle of Cannae, where his brilliant tactics resulted in the annihilation of a much larger Roman army. Rome was in a state of panic. Hannibal was at the gates, but he never marched on the city itself. Perhaps he lacked the siege equipment, or maybe he hoped Rome's allies would desert them. They didn't. The Romans, under the leadership of a general named Scipio, changed their strategy. Instead of facing Hannibal directly, they attacked Carthaginian territories in Spain and then, in a brilliant countermove, invaded North Africa itself, threatening Carthage directly. This forced Carthage to recall Hannibal from Italy to defend his homeland. The two great generals, Hannibal and Scipio, finally met on the battlefield at Zama. In 202 BC, it was a clash of titans, but this time the Romans had learned from their defeats. Scipio's tactics neutralized Hannibal's elephants and cavalry, and the Roman legions proved superior. Hannibal was defeated. The Second Punic War was over. Rome imposed even harsher terms. Carthage lost all its overseas territories. Its navy was dismantled, and it was forbidden from waging war without Rome's permission. The great maritime empire was broken. For the next 50 years, a fragile peace existed. Carthage, stripped of its empire, focused on agriculture, and became wealthy once again. But in Rome, some politicians couldn't let go of their old fear and hatred. The Senator Cato, the Elder, famously ended every speech he gave, no matter the topic, with the words, Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. Rome finally found its excuse in 149 BC, when Carthage defended itself against an attack from a neighboring kingdom, technically breaking the treaty. Rome declared the Third Punic War. This wasn't a war, it was an execution. The Romans besieged the city for 3 years. The Carthaginians, knowing this was a fight for their very survival, resisted with incredible desperation. According to accounts, they melted down statues for weapons and women cut off their hair to make ropes for catapults. But the outcome was never in doubt. In 146 BC, Roman soldiers breached the walls. What followed was a week of horrific street-by-street fighting. The city was plundered and burned to the ground. The surviving 50,000 citizens, out of a population that may have once been 500,000, were sold into slavery. The Romans, determined to wipe Carthage from the face of the earth, supposedly sowed the fields with salt to ensure nothing would ever grow there again. The great rival of Rome was gone, erased from history. But the story doesn't quite end there. The location was too good to leave empty forever. About a century later, the Romans themselves, under Julius Caesar and later Augustus, rebuilt the city. This new Roman Carthage grew to become one of the most important cities in the Roman Empire, a major center for Christianity in Africa, and home to influential thinkers like Tertullian and St. Augustine. It flourished for several more centuries before being conquered by the Vandals, then the Byzantines, and finally the Arabs in the 7th century, who founded the nearby city of Tunis. The old city was gradually abandoned, its stones used to build its new neighbor. Today, the ruins of Carthage are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, scattered among the suburbs of modern Tunis. You can walk through the remains of Roman villas with beautiful mosaics, see the layout of the ancient Punic ports, and stand in the ruins of the massive Antonine baths. You can also visit a quiet, somber place that hints at the city's darker mysteries. Visiting Carthage is a powerful experience. It's a reminder that even the greatest empires can fall, that history is written by the victors, and that beneath the layers of time, the echoes of a once mighty civilization can still be heard. The story of Carthage is a timeless lesson in power, ambition, and the fragility of greatness. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the history of Carthage. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. Let me know in the comments which ancient city you'd like to explore next. See you in the next one.